Okay.
Apple do not like it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Today, I'm lucky that Sanjay, and Sanjay actually brought his own tech support all the way from home. All right. Sanjay is a good friend of mine, and we were talking about this, and Sanjay has been actually doing lots of training over the last year or two, actually, or even 3.
7 years.
7 years. Oh my goodness, time flies to be having
Time
fun.
flies, right? Time flies, right?
And we talked about it, and really one area that we thought that he could share is actually about stakeholder management, right? So this is what Sanjay is sharing today. I'll give a little hint on who is coming next week because it's already set up. So I have a lot of good stuff in Sanjay's right up in the email to Sanjay, so I wouldn't say too much, but he has been in the IT industry for almost 30 years. Yeah, right. Years, yeah. So in the last 7 years, he's been actually helping the IT professionals in terms of in the leadership training. Right. So without further ado, I give it to Sanjay to you.
Thanks, Chuck. Good. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. So when Chuck was asking me for a long time to do a talk here, and I just couldn't figure out what to do here, right? Thinking about, because it's all about technology, startups, and things like that. So what can I really do about it? So one of the things I thought about is what is the common problem we all have, right? Whether we are a startup or whether we are an MNC or stuff, right? And one of the key things is around people management, right? People management, you have to make, if you have a 2-man show also, you have to manage people, and if you have a 100,000 strong company also, you have to manage people, right? So I just do a quick background myself. My company is named Aetherplus, and it's been about 7 years. I left the IT industry in 2009, right? I left the IT industry in 2009 and thought of a lot of different things what I wanted to do, but somehow I landed up in learning and development. Right? A lot of feedback from my friends and colleagues said, Sanjay, why don't you do this? Because you've been in management for so long. It's good maybe you go out and do some training and coaching. Right? So I started out experimenting, and in 2010 I started my company. So it's been about 7 years as an entrepreneur, facilitator, and a coach. Okay? And I worked in Singapore and the USA as well. I spent 10 years in the US, but I'm a Singaporean by birth, and I came back here and settled down here, right? So as you said, I'm in IT industry, 20 years in the IT industry. 10 of those I was in Microsoft. Okay, so Microsoft both in the US for about 2 years in Dallas, Texas, and then the rest of the time in Singapore. Okay? My focus a lot was around enterprise support and consulting. So more of the delivery side of things that we were doing, not so much the product side, more the services side. Okay? And then what I do now, this is what I actually do now. I facilitate programs in a few areas, right? And leadership, management change, and all of this comes from experience. Basically, it's not something that you learn from books, but basically what we've done in the past. Okay? I'm also an executive coach, and I also administer things like psychometric tools like MBTI and emergenetics and those kind of tools. And we can talk a lot more about it if you have any questions around those things. I'm not going to waste so much time. But this is about Aetherplus. Like, you can go to my website and look at it. Right? My importance is about learning, right? And also through innovation and excellence. Okay? So a few things about us. Basically, is that we are very strengths-based approach. Right? So strengths-based approach using neuroscience techniques, because neuroscience is a fledgling science now. And what happens is that we are learning a lot more about the brain, how it works, and how people behave. So I got fond of neuroscience very quickly, very early, even in Microsoft days. And I got certified under a group called Neuro Leadership Group as a coach. And also have done a certificate course there in neuroscience to understand how people behave. Right? And a lot of it is actually biological, right? Very biological in nature. Right? Not that people want to behave, they just behave that way. Okay? And we use a combination of different types of tools. So learning is not just about training. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that when you say learning, training, right? No, I think most of the learning happens on the job. Most of the learning happens in your meeting rooms, right? In your discussions, and that's what's important. So it's not just about training. We use different types of tools. We facilitate, we coach. We do action learning, games, activities. We do many different ways because we want to get the optimal out of it. Right. And finally is that I don't try to do everything, right? Because being right now I have only myself and 2 more employees. That's it. So we kind of like have a network of trainers. So I have a lot of associates who do different areas like sales, maybe finance, like things like that. So I try not to boil the ocean by doing it all myself. Right? So this is a bit about my company. So these are the areas that we focus on, and particularly our focus is all around the business, right? Whether it's MNCs, SMEs, or startups, right? Leadership issues you have to look at. Change is a big thing, right? Disruptive change. Today, after today's US election, another big change. Right, coming across, we don't know what's going to happen there. Right? Innovation is another big key, and project management. These are some of the key things that most businesses ask me to kind of come and work with them on. Right? These are just memberships and all the certifications that we do. I just flip through very quickly. These are my customers. Some of my customers work multi-cross industry. I'm not. Interestingly, I've done very little work in IT after leaving. Right, so I've done a lot of work in manufacturing, finance, banks, including healthcare, even social service as well. But the question is, this is all about soft skills anyway, right? It's all about leadership and management skills as a whole. And as I said, I work with a lot of different partners, right? Whether some partners are from US, some partners are from Netherlands. I also have partners in Singapore as well. We work together to do the programs. So that's a little bit about me. Any questions before I start? So I thought I could give a little snippet of a workshop that we would do, right? And I said, what would be something that people would like to do? And I think this is something that everybody probably has a problem with. It's your stakeholders, right? So whether you're running a project, whether you're running a new venture, whether you're running a big company strategy, whatever you may be doing, a lot of times you have to work with people, right? So one of the things we do in a lot of workshops and I try to do is understand who the stakeholder is, right? Who's the stakeholder? Okay. So I'll give you a slick run through. I won't do the whole part of the workshop here. But when you're identifying a stakeholder, one of the key things to understand is why is the stakeholder important to you, or why is the stakeholder interested in what you're doing? Okay. So there are these 5 boxes here, right? And as you know, we shift from Surface to Apple, so everything is shifted a bit. Okay. The impact. Wherever you're doing, what's the impact to your company? What can the stakeholder do to your company? Can he grow your company? Can he stop your company from working? What can he do? The impact that he gets. It could be success or failure. Somebody might be looking towards your failure, right? Because he wants to further his own agenda, right? And I can share with you some of the stories that I have faced in the past as well, right? They gain something, right? Whether it's money, whether it's prestige, whatever. They gain something, whether from. And you see both sides, success and failure, right? Because success, yes, but some people are not supporters, some people are resistors. So they are looking for you to fail as well. People are affected. You implement a new system, you implement a new thing. Who's affected by it, right? So these are people who are affected by the outcomes of the project. Okay. Probably in venture, I think this is one of the stakeholders, key people like this, your investors, right? So investors, who's invested resources and who's invested funding. Right? These are the key stakeholders. All you're accountable for it in one way or another, right? Your goals, your objectives, based on what you want to achieve is also there. So it's a good thing to understand is who are your stakeholders. So in a regular workshop, what we do is we ask them to sit down and brainstorm in a group and say, who are your stakeholders, right? And we give them these 5 little boxes here and say, think of it in these terms and try to identify who they are. So I give out post-it notes, everyone writes one stakeholder per post-it note, right? And they collect quite a lot. At first they think about 2 or 3, then when they finally think about it, right, they realize that there are just many more. Okay? Right? I work with some of you as well, right? And sometimes we ignore some of the stakeholders. Our team members are also stakeholders. Right? Sometimes when we are starting up, our family support is very important. Family is also a stakeholder, right? Okay? As I work with some of you, I've done some coaching for some of you, some consulting work. We've realized that, all of a sudden we think, hey, you know what, we never thought about family, because I need to spend the family time as well. Right? How does it affect the family time? How does it do that? So these impact the way you do things. Okay? And the thing you have to always understand, do you understand the WIFM? You know what this acronym means? Yeah? You know? What's in it for me, right? So everybody has this thing. Everybody has a WIFM, is what we say. What's in it for me? Right? Why do I do this? Why should I support you? Why should I give you funds? Right? Okay? So everyone has a WIFM, right? And you have to understand the WIFM. And if you don't understand the WIFM, you will have a much harder time controlling your stakeholders. Okay? So why do we do? Then what we do here is we do what we call a stakeholder analysis. Okay? And the reason for doing stakeholder analysis is really to preempt a lot of the issues or problems that you may face down the road. You want to preempt. So you do this very onset of any kind of a project or a venture when you're starting. Who are the people who are we going to work with? Right? And how are they going to support us? How are they going to resist us? Are there neutrals in there? What are we going to do with them? Okay? So there are four things, right, that we want to look at. Number one is the earlier we communicate with our stakeholders, right, you can use their opinions of your powerful stakeholders to shape your venture, shape your project. Okay? Now, why do we want to do this? Any idea? Why do we want their influence? If they have ideas and you implement it into your project, why do you think that's good? Anybody? Experience, right? So if I have if Joe has a project here, right, and I give Joe an idea, Joe implements it, would I likely support it or oppose it? I'll support it, right? Because my idea is inside. If my idea is not inside, maybe I will resist it, right? But the moment I have one part of it, I don't want his venture to fail because my idea is there. See how psychology works, right? Whether it's money or not, but still it's my idea. So my idea is implementing. So I will help Joe, right, to do that. Okay. You want to get support from them. Obviously, resources are very important, right? When you start, whether it's funding, whether it's people, expertise, you want to get the support there. Okay? And then communication, right? The more you communicate with them, the more they fully understand the project. So they don't come up with all kinds of funny ideas about your project and what you want to do and all that stuff. The more you communicate with them, the more they understand, and then the more they will interact with you. Okay? Now the last one is anticipation. So a lot of times when you tell somebody an idea, you can easily read from the body language. You know, they get scared about something. So you can anticipate people's reaction. Are people happy with what you're doing? Are people not happy with it? Right? Are people going to oppose? What are they going to do? So these are the four kind of things that we look at. Okay? Any questions so far? So we kind of, there are many ways to actually do that. There are many ways to actually do stakeholder analysis. The simplest way is what we call a power interest grid. How much power does a stakeholder has as opposed to how much interest do they have, right? So we come up with this matrix because, as I said, when you sit down and think about your stakeholders, there's a lot really. How are you going to manage all these different stakeholders, right? So as trainers and facilitators, we like to make it a bit simpler. We put it into a grid, right? We put it into a 4 grid, so it makes it easier to group the people and to work with them. Okay? So with that, depending on the power level and the interest level, there are different strategies for each one, right? Different types of strategies. Now this is the very simple. There are much more complex ways of doing it, right? But this is the very simple. And most of the time, most projects, we do this very simply. Okay? So these are the different strategies that we work with. Right? If you have the low power, low interest people, this is one strategy which is monitor them. Right? If they are high interest and low power, you keep them informed. High power and low interest, keep them satisfied. And these are the ones that high power and interest. Now, what does power mean? Right? So when you have power, what comes to mind? Power all of them. Control, right? Is it hierarchical control? Management control? Not necessarily. What other kinds of power do you know? Financial power, yes. Right? Influence, yes, you have influence, right? Okay. If the CEO's son-in-law is working with you, right? Is he an influential person? Possible, right? Possible, right? So we call it relationship power, right? You know somebody somewhere. So you have relationship power, knowledge, right? Technological expertise, right? There are all kinds of power, right? It's not just money. Most of the time people will think of money and they think about hierarchical, right? He's my boss, right? That's it. But there are other types of power as well that you need. And when you think about organizations or projects and things like that, what is it you really need for it? You need to understand who has the power and you need to bring that person on board. Okay? So that's what we're looking at. Interest means that, hey, the guy is into your project, understands what he's doing, right? But there are some people who may not be ultimately interested in your project. Okay? They may not be very, very interested in your project. Okay? They may want to say, try to cut you short, do something with it, so it will make it into a problem. So they may do that.